Ambassador Chenny Lin stood at the tall window of her office in Geneva. The morning sun made the lake shine like gold. Birds sang in the trees outside. It was a peaceful day. She did not know it would be her last peaceful day for many years. Her assistant knocked on the door. His face was pale, and his hands were shaking. "Ambassador, there is a message from the Galactic Concord. Priority 1. Chun felt her stomach tighten. In the 3 years since humanity had made first contact with alien life, she had learned to fear Priority 1 messages. They never brought good news. She sat at her desk and opened the secure channel. The face that appeared on her screen was not human. It belonged to a tall, gray-skinned species with 4 eyes and a mouth full of sharp teeth. This particular being was High Arbiter Voss, one of the most powerful figures in the galaxy. "Ambassador Chun," Voss said, his voice cold and flat. "The High Tribunal of the Galactic Concord has reached a decision regarding the Thesari refugee crisis." Chun leaned forward. She had heard about the Thesari. 3 months ago, the Valoran Empire had invaded their homeworld. The Valorans were a warrior species. They believed that strength was the only thing that mattered. The Thesari were the opposite, a gentle, peaceful species with no army and no weapons. The invasion had taken only 6 days. Millions had died. The survivors had fled into space with nothing but the clothes on their backs. "The Concord has decided on a resettlement plan," Voss continued. 6 million Thesari refugees will be transported to Earth. They will arrive in 72 hours. Chun could not speak for a moment. She thought she had heard wrong. "I'm sorry," she said slowly. "Did you say 6 million to Earth?" "That is correct. But we cannot, High Arbiter. Earth has never hosted alien refugees before. We do not have the facilities. We do not know what they eat, how they breathe, or what temperatures they need. 72 hours is not enough time to prepare for 6 million people." Voss's 4 eyes blinked slowly. "The Concord understands this will be difficult." "Difficult?" Chun stood up, her voice rising. "This is impossible. We need time. We need resources. We need help from the Concord. The Concord will not provide assistance. This is a resettlement, not a joint operation. The Thesari are now Earth's responsibility." Chun felt her heart pounding, but she forced herself to stay calm. "May I ask why Earth was chosen for this honor?" Something that might have been a smile crossed Voss's face. "Earth is a growing world. The tribunal believes you have room for expansion. And of course, there is the matter of your recent behavior in the trade negotiations." Now Chun understood. Last month, she had publicly challenged the Concord's unfair trade rules. She had called them exploitative. She had demanded change. The lesser species had watched in silence, but she had seen hope in their eyes. The Concord did not like hope in the eyes of lesser species. This was punishment. "The Thesari have no value to the Concord," Voss said, as if reading her thoughts. "They have no military strength. They have no rare resources. They have no useful technology. They are, frankly, a burden. We are giving you the opportunity to prove that Earth is as compassionate as you claim." "And if we refuse?" Voss leaned closer to the camera. "You will not refuse. The ships are already on their way. If you fire upon them, it will be considered an act of war against the Concord. If you turn them away, the Thesari will die in space, and that blood will be on human hands." He paused. "Either way, Earth loses." The transmission ended. Chun stared at the blank screen for a long moment. Then she picked up her phone and made a call that would change human history. 12 hours later, the United Nations Security Council met in an emergency session. The room was filled with the most powerful leaders on Earth: presidents, prime ministers, generals, scientists. They all wore the same expression: fear mixed with anger. Secretary General Amar Okonkwo stood at the podium. She was a tall woman from Nigeria with gray hair and calm eyes. In her 30 years of public service, she had faced many crises, but nothing like this. "Let me make sure everyone understands the situation," she said. "In 60 hours, transport ships carrying 6 million Thesari refugees will enter Earth's atmosphere. They will need food, water, shelter, and medical care. They are not human. We do not fully understand their biology. And the Galactic Concord has made it clear they will not help us. The Russian representative slammed his fist on the table. This is an act of war. They are using refugees as weapons against us. They are using them as garbage, said the Japanese representative quietly. They are dumping them on us because they do not want them. Then we should dump them right back, the American representative said. Let them die in space. That is not our problem. A murmur of agreement spread through the room. Chun, sitting in the corner, felt sick to her stomach. Secretary General Okonkwo raised her hand for silence. I understand the anger in this room. I share it. The Concord has treated us with contempt since the day we met them. They see us as primitives. They see us as lesser beings. And now they expect us to fail. They expect us to turn away 6 million innocent people and prove that we are exactly as cruel as they are. She paused and looked around the room. But we are not them. That is the whole point. We are not them. The Brazilian representative spoke. With respect, Madam Secretary General, we cannot save everyone. We have our own hungry, our own homeless, our own sick. How can we take care of 6 million aliens when we cannot even take care of our own people? We cannot do it alone, Okonkwo agreed. But we do not have to do it alone. Every nation here has something to offer. Land, food, medicine, knowledge. If we work together, we can do this. If we stand divided, we will fail, and the Concord wins. And if we do fail? The Chinese representative asked. Okonkwo met his gaze steadily. Then we fail trying. And that is still better than failing because we did not try at all. The debate continued for hours. Some nations refused to participate. Others demanded guarantees that would be impossible to meet. But slowly, painfully, a plan began to form. Not a perfect plan, not even a good plan, but a plan. By the time the sun rose over Geneva, the Global Vasari Integration Authority had been created. It was underfunded, understaffed, and facing an impossible deadline. But it existed. That was a start. Commander Sarah Torres had been a pilot for 15 years. She had flown combat missions, rescue operations, and diplomatic escorts. But she had never seen anything like the ships now appearing in Earth's sky. There were hundreds of them. They were Concorde transport vessels. Massive gray cylinders with no windows and no beauty. They looked like coffins floating in space as they descended through the atmosphere, blocking out the sun over half of Europe. Torres was flying her fighter jet alongside the lead transport. Her orders were simple. Observe and report. Do not engage. Do not interfere. Just watch. Through her cockpit window, she could see the transport's hull. It was scarred and dented. Rust or something like rust covered large sections. These were not passenger ships. They were cargo haulers. The Concorde had loaded 6 million living beings onto cargo haulers. Her radio crackled. Commander Torres, this is Geneva Control. The first transport is requesting landing coordinates. We are directing them to the primary reception zone in southern France. Please escort. Understood, Geneva Control, Torres replied. She banked her jet and took position ahead of the transport. I will guide them in. As she flew, she thought about what waited below. In the past 60 hours, an army of workers had transformed empty fields into a temporary city. Tents stretched for miles. Water tanks, food supplies, and medical stations had been airlifted from all over the world. Thousands of volunteers had arrived, ready to help. It would not be enough. Everyone knew it would not be enough, but it was what they had. The transport touched down with a sound like thunder. The ground shook, and dust clouds rose into the air. Torres circled overhead and watched as the massive doors began to open. For a long moment, nothing happened. The doors stood open, revealing only darkness inside. Then they came. The Vasari walked slowly, blinking in the bright sunlight. They were humanoid in shape, 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head, but their skin was different. It was pale blue and slightly transparent, glowing with a soft inner light. Their eyes were large and dark, like deep pools of water. They had no hair, but delicate patterns of light moved across their scalps like living tattoos. They were beautiful, and they were terrified. Torres watched as the first Thesari stepped onto Earth's soil. It was a female carrying a small child in her arms. The child's glow was faint and flickering, a sign of sickness or starvation, as Torres would later learn. The mother looked around at the strange world, the strange sky, the strange beings waiting to receive her. Then a human woman stepped forward. She was a doctor, wearing a white coat and a kind smile. She spoke in slow, clear English, not knowing if the Thesari could understand. "Welcome to Earth. We are here to help you. Please come with me." The Thesari mother stared at her. The patterns of light on her skin shifted and changed, her species' way of expressing emotion. Then, slowly, she reached out and took the doctor's hand. Behind her, thousands more Thesari began to emerge from the transport. And behind them, hundreds more ships were landing across the globe. The largest refugee crisis in human history had begun. High Arbiter Voss watched the footage from his office on the Concorde's capital station. His 4 eyes moved independently, tracking different screens showing landing sites across Earth. "Interesting," he said to his assistant. "They are actually trying." "It will not last," the assistant replied. "Our projections show that Earth's resources will be depleted within 6 months. Their economy will collapse, their governments will fall, and then the Thesari will die anyway, along with millions of humans. It is simple mathematics." Voss nodded slowly. "Perhaps, but I have learned not to underestimate these humans. They are unpredictable. Unpredictability is not a strength. It is a flaw. So we have always believed." Voss turned away from the screens. "Continue monitoring. I want daily reports on every aspect of this situation. If the humans surprise us, I want to know immediately." "Yes, High Arbiter. And what of the Valorans? They are asking if we will take any action regarding their invasion of the Thesari Prime." Voss made a sound that might have been a laugh. "The Valorans are strong. The Thesari were weak. The strong consume the weak. That is the natural order. The Concorde does not interfere with the natural order." "Of course, High Arbiter." After his assistant left, Voss stood at his window, looking out at the stars. Somewhere in that vast darkness, 6 million refugees were beginning new lives on a primitive planet. He wondered how many would survive the year. He suspected the answer was 0. In a temporary shelter in southern France, a Thesari elder named Ishil Ra sat on a thin mattress and looked at the strange ceiling above her. She was 300 years old, middle-aged for her species, and she had seen much in her long life. But she had never imagined she would see her homeworld burn. She had never imagined she would be cast out among the stars like garbage. The humans around her were busy. They moved constantly, carrying supplies, setting up equipment, shouting instructions to each other. They seemed to never rest, and they smiled at her. That was the strangest thing. They smiled. In the Galactic Concorde, no one smiled at the Thesari. They were considered useless, a species with no purpose, taking up space that could be used by others. The Valorans had conquered them easily because no one in the galaxy cared enough to stop it. But these humans, they seemed to care. A young human approached Ishil's bed. He was carrying a bowl of something that steamed in the cool air. He could not have been more than 20 years old, with dark skin and bright eyes. "Hello," he said slowly. "I am Marcus. Are you hungry?" Ishil did not understand all of his words, but she understood the gesture. She reached out and took the bowl. The food inside was strange, nothing she recognized. But it was warm, and the smell was not unpleasant. She took a small bite. It was not good. It was not meant for her biology. But it was food and she was starving. The young human watched her anxiously. "Is it okay? We do not know what you eat. We are trying to learn." Ishil looked at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she let her skin glow brighter, a sign of gratitude among her people. The human's face lit up with joy. He did not know what her glow meant, but he seemed to understand that it was something good. "I will bring more," he said. "We will figure this out. I promise." He ran off and Ishil Ra watched him go. Around her, the shelter was full of chaos and confusion. The Thesari children cried for parents they had lost. Human doctors struggled to understand bodies that were completely alien to them. Supplies were running low. Tempers were running high. And yet, beneath all the chaos, there was something else. Something Ishel had not felt in a long time. Hope. It was small. It was fragile. It might not survive the night. But it was there. The humans had been given an impossible task. They had been set up to fail. They had every reason to turn the Thesari away and save themselves. But they had not. They had chosen compassion. Ishel did not know if it would be enough. She did not know if any of them would survive what was coming. But for the first time since her world had burned, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, there was still good in the universe. Outside, the sun was setting on the first day of a new era. The stars were coming out, cold and distant. Somewhere among those stars, the beings who had thrown the Thesari away like garbage were waiting for humanity to prove them right. They would have to wait a long time. The first death came on the third day. Her name was the Riva. She was 4 years old. She had survived the bombing of her city, the long march to the evacuation ships, and the terrible journey through space. But she could not survive the simple bacteria in Earth's water. Dr. Maria Santos held the small body in her arms and cried. Around her, the medical tent was full of sick Thesari, hundreds of them, all suffering from the same symptoms. Fever, pain, their inner glow fading to almost nothing. "We are killing them," Maria whispered to her colleague. "We are trying to save them, and we are killing them instead." Her colleague, a young man named David, placed a hand on her shoulder. "We didn't know. How could we know? Their biology is completely different from ours. We should have known. We should have been prepared." "There was no time to prepare. You know that." Maria gently laid the child's body on a clean sheet. She looked at the rows of sick Thesari, at their frightened families, at the overwhelmed medical staff running from bed to bed. "Then we must learn fast," she said, "or more will die." She did not sleep for the next 72 hours. Neither did her team. They took blood samples, studied tissue, and ran every test they could think of. They contacted universities around the world, begging for help. They worked until their hands shook and their eyes burned. On the fourth day, a message came from a research lab in Brazil. A scientist there had found something, a possible treatment. It was not perfect, but it might work. Maria read the message 3 times to make sure she understood. Then she started making calls. Within 6 hours, every medical facility in the world was producing the new treatment. Within 12 hours, they were shipping it to every refugee camp on Earth. Within 24 hours, the death rate began to fall. It was not enough. More Thesari died in those first terrible weeks. But fewer died than would have without the treatment. And the scientists kept working, kept learning, kept improving. It was the first small victory in what would become a very long war. Secretary General Amar Okonkwo stood before the cameras once again. It had been 30 days since the refugees arrived. The whole world was watching her. They wanted answers. They wanted hope. She was not sure she had either. "My fellow human beings," she began. "1 month ago we were given an impossible choice. We could turn away 6 million innocent people and let them die in space, or we could open our arms and try to save them. We chose the second path, not because it was easy, not because we knew we could succeed, but because it was right." She paused and looked directly into the camera. "I will not lie to you. The past 30 days have been the hardest in our history. We have made mistakes. We have lost lives, both Thesari and human. We have spent billions of dollars that many say we do not have. And we are far from finished. The road ahead is long, and it is dark, and we cannot see the end. But we are walking it together. Every nation, every community, every person who has donated food, volunteered time, or simply shown kindness to a stranger from another world. You have shown the galaxy what humanity truly is. We are not perfect. We never have been. But we do not abandon those in need. We do not close our eyes to suffering. We do not turn our backs on the weak. The beings who sent these refugees to us expected us to fail. They expected us to prove that we are no better than they are. They expected cruelty to be our guide. We will show them a different path." She ended her speech. The cameras stopped recording, and for a moment, She allowed herself to feel the weight of everything that was happening. Then she straightened her shoulders and went back to work. There was too much to do. There would always be too much to do. In a small fishing village in Japan, a deaf woman named Yuki Tanaka was about to make a discovery that would change everything. Yuki had been deaf since birth. She communicated through sign language, a visual way of speaking that used hand movements and facial expressions. When the first Thesari refugees arrived at the camp near her village, she volunteered to help. First, she felt useless. The Thesari did not understand sign language, and she could not hear them speak. But then she noticed something strange. The Thesari did not just speak with their voices, they also spoke with light. The glowing patterns on their skin changed constantly, forming shapes and movements that seemed to carry meaning. Yuki watched these patterns for hours. She began to see a structure in them, a grammar, a logic. It was a language, a visual language just like sign language. On the 40th day, Yuki approached a young Thesari girl sitting alone by the fence of the camp. The girl's parents had died on the journey to Earth. She had not spoken to anyone since. Yuki sat down beside her. She did not try to speak. Instead, she raised her hands and made a simple sign, the sign for hello in Japanese Sign Language. The Thesari girl looked at her with confusion. Her skin flickered with uncertain light. Yuki tried again. She pointed to herself and made the sign for her name. Then she pointed to the girl with a questioning look. The girl stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, she raised her own hand. Her skin began to glow in a specific pattern. A pattern that Yuki somehow understood meant friend. Yuki's eyes filled with tears. She nodded and made the sign for friend in return. From that moment, the two of them met every day. Yuki learned the Thesari light language, and she taught the girl Japanese Sign Language. They created a bridge between two worlds using nothing but their hands and their eyes. Word spread quickly. Other deaf people from around the world came to learn. They discovered that the deaf community could learn the Thesari light language much faster than hearing people could. They were already used to visual communication. They understood how to read meaning in movement and pattern. Within months, a new form of communication had been created. A blend of human sign language and the Thesari light patterns that both species could understand. It was not perfect, but it worked. The hearing world had always seen deaf people as having a disability. Now, suddenly, they had an ability that no one else possessed. They became the first true translators between humans and the Thesari. They became the bridges that held two species together. The little deaf woman from Japan had given humanity a gift beyond measure. Marcus Johnson had joined the volunteer corps because he had nothing else to do. He was 22 years old, a military veteran, and completely lost. The war in Africa had broken something inside him. He could not sleep without nightmares. He could not be around loud noises without panicking. He had tried to return to normal life, but normal life felt like a foreign country. When he heard about the refugee crisis, he signed up without thinking. At least it was something to do. At least it was a purpose. He was assigned to a camp in Portugal, on an old farm that had been converted into a shelter. His job was simple. Help with construction, carry supplies, do whatever needed to be done. It was hard physical work, and he was grateful for it. When his body was tired, his mind was quiet. On his third week at the camp, he met an elderly Thesari named Ishil. She was sitting alone outside her tent, looking at the sky. Her skin glowed faintly, and her dark eyes seemed to hold infinite sadness. Something about her reminded Marcus of his grandmother. The same quiet dignity, the same deep weariness. He sat down beside her without speaking. They stayed like that for a long time, two broken souls in comfortable silence. After a while, Ishil turned to look at him. She did not speak English well yet, but she was learning. "You carry pain," she said softly. "I can feel it." Marcus was surprised. "You can feel it? How?" "My people are empaths. We sense emotions. Yours are very loud." Marcus did not know what to say. He was not used to talking about his feelings. He was not sure he even understood them anymore. Ishil reached out and touched his arm. Her fingers were cool and slightly damp, like morning dew. "You do not need to speak," she said. I can help if you allow me. Help? How? She did not answer with words. Instead, her skin began to glow more brightly, and Marcus felt something strange happening. It was like warmth spreading through his chest, loosening knots he had not even known were there. The constant tension in his shoulders began to fade. The racing of his heart slowed. For the first time in years, he felt something like peace. When Ishel removed her hand, Marcus was crying. He did not know why. He just sat there and cried, and she sat beside him without judgment. What did you do to me? He finally asked. I helped you feel what you have been hiding, she said. Your pain is still there. It will take time to heal, but you do not have to carry it alone. From that day forward, Marcus came to sit with Ishel every evening. Sometimes they talked. Sometimes they just sat in silence. And slowly, session by session, he began to heal. He was not the only one. Word spread about what the Thesari could do. Their empathic abilities, which had been useless in a galaxy that valued only strength and power, proved to be invaluable on Earth. They could help with trauma. They could calm fear and anger. They could help people understand each other in ways that words alone never could. The species that the Concord had called worthless was turning out to be worth more than anyone had imagined. High Arbiter Voss read the report with growing unease. It had been 100 days since the refugees arrived on Earth. According to all projections, the human economy should have collapsed by now. Food riots should have begun. Governments should have fallen. None of that had happened. Explain this, he demanded of his assistant. How are they still functioning? The assistant shifted nervously. It appears the humans have implemented several creative solutions. They have redistributed resources on a global scale. They have developed new agricultural techniques with the Thesari assistance. They have created communication systems that allow for effective coordination. That is impossible, Voss said. They are primitives. They have been a spacefaring species for less than a century. Yes, High Arbiter. And yet, the data is clear. They are not only surviving, they are adapting. Voss was silent for a long moment. And the Thesari? He finally asked. Most have survived. The initial death toll was significant, but the humans developed medical treatments faster than expected. The current Thesari population on Earth is approximately 5.7 million. That is unexpected. There is more, High Arbiter. Our observers on Earth have reported something unusual. The humans and the Thesari are not merely coexisting. They are forming bonds, friendships. Some are even forming families. Families? Between species. Not biological families, High Arbiter, but emotional bonds of similar strength. The humans have a concept they call found family. It seems they are applying this concept to the Thesari. Voss turned to look out his window at the stars. He had lived for 500 years. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had seen species conquer and be conquered. He had never seen anything like this. Continue monitoring, he said at last. I want to know everything that happens on Earth. Every detail. Yes, High Arbiter. Should we consider intervention? Not yet. But soon, perhaps. If the humans continue to surprise us, we may need to adjust our approach. After his assistant left, Voss stood alone with his thoughts. The humans had done something the Concord had not expected. They had chosen compassion over cruelty. They had turned a burden into an opportunity. They had proven that the Concord's calculations were wrong. That was dangerous. If other species saw what the humans had done, they might begin to question the Concord's way of doing things. They might start to wonder if there was another path. Such thoughts could not be allowed to spread. On Earth, the sun was rising over the camps once again. In Portugal, Marcus was helping to build a permanent school where human and Thesari children would learn together. In Japan, Yuki was training a new generation of translators. In Brazil, Dr. Maria Santos was developing treatments that would save thousands more lives. And in a small garden that the refugees had planted, Ishel Ra knelt among the flowers. They were strange flowers from a strange world, but they were beautiful and they were growing. A human child ran past, chasing a Thesari child. Their laughter filled the morning air. They did not see any difference between themselves. They were just children playing in the sun. Ishilare watched them and felt something she had not felt in a long time. Not just hope, something stronger. Something that felt almost like faith. The beings who had thrown her people away had expected them to die. They had expected the humans to fail. They had expected cruelty to triumph, as it always had in the cold equations of the galaxy. But they had not counted on the simple power of kindness. They had not understood that compassion was not weakness. It was strength of a different kind. The first 100 days were over. The next 100 would bring new challenges, new struggles, new losses. But they would also bring new victories, new connections, new reasons to believe. The galaxy was watching, and humanity was showing them something they had never seen before. 3 years passed since the ships first darkened Earth's sky. The world had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The camps were mostly gone now. In their place stood new communities, neighborhoods where humans and the Sari lived side by side. The streets had names in both languages. The shops sold food from 2 worlds. Children walked to school together, their laughter mixing with the soft glow of the Sari skin. It was not perfect. Nothing ever was. But it was working. Marcus stood at the door of his small apartment in Lisbon and looked out at the morning. He was 30 now, no longer the broken young man who had arrived at the camps years ago. The nightmares still came sometimes, but they were quieter now. The panic attacks had almost stopped. He had a job. He had friends. He had a life that felt worth living. And he had Ishil. She was not his mother. His mother had died when he was 12. She was not his grandmother. His grandmother had passed away while he was at war. But she was something else. Family in a way that had no name but was no less real. She had saved him. Her patient kindness, her gentle healing, her willingness to sit with him through his darkest hours. She had given him back to himself. And in return, he had helped her navigate this strange new world. He had taught her English, shown her how to use human technology, defended her against those who wished her harm. They were each other's bridge between 2 worlds. This morning, he was taking her somewhere special. It was a surprise, and he was nervous. He hoped she would like it. The hover bus carried them across the city to a new building on the waterfront. It was beautiful, glass and light, with the Sari patterns woven into the architecture. A sign above the entrance read, "The Sari Human Cultural Center. Opening Day." Ishil's skin flickered with surprise. "What is this place?" Marcus smiled. "A gift from Portugal to the Sari people. There will be art, music, history, both our cultures together. And there is something else inside. Something I want to show you." He led her through the entrance into a vast hall filled with light. Human and the Sari visitors walked together, looking at displays that told the story of both species. There were the Sari light sculptures that moved and changed, responding to the emotions of those who watched. There were human paintings and photographs showing scenes from the first days of the refugee crisis. There was music playing, a new kind of music that blended human instruments with the Sari harmonic tones. But Marcus did not stop. He led Ishil to a smaller room at the back of the building. Inside was a garden. It was not like any garden she had seen before. The plants were from the Sari prime species thought extinct when their planet fell. Scientists had found seeds among the refugees' belongings, carefully preserved. They had worked for years to grow them in Earth's soil. And they had succeeded. Ishilare stood frozen at the entrance. Her skin glowed brighter than Marcus had ever seen, cycling through colors he did not have names for. Tears, the first he had ever seen her shed, fell from her dark eyes. "These are the flowers of my childhood," she whispered. "I thought I would never see them again." She walked slowly into the garden, touching each plant as if it might disappear. Some of the flowers responded to her presence, their petals opening wider, their faint glow increasing. "How?" she asked. "How is this possible?" Marcus stood beside her. A lot of people worked very hard. Scientists, gardeners, the Sari who remembered the old growing techniques. It took 3 years, but we wanted you to have a piece of home. This is not just for me. No, it is for all of your people. But I wanted you to see it first, because you helped me find my home again. I wanted to do the same for you. She turned and embraced him. Her arms were thin and cool, but her glow was warm against his skin. For a long moment they simply held each other. Two survivors, two healers, two friends. Thank you, she said softly. Thank you for not giving up on us, he replied. On any of us. In Geneva, Ambassador Qinlin sat in her office and reviewed the latest reports. The numbers were remarkable. The Sari integration had exceeded every projection. Unemployment among refugees had dropped to just 12%. Crime rates in mixed communities were lower than in purely human areas. And the Sari contributions to human society had become impossible to ignore. Their empathic abilities had revolutionized mental health treatment. Therapists trained in the Sari techniques were helping humans overcome trauma, addiction, and emotional disorders that had resisted all other treatments. Suicide rates in countries with large Sari populations had dropped by 30%. Their agricultural knowledge had solved food shortages in dozens of developing nations. The bioluminescent algae farms they designed produced more protein per acre than any human technology, and did so without harming the environment. Regions that had struggled with hunger for generations now had food to spare. Their art and music had captured human hearts. The Sari light sculptures were displayed in museums around the world. The Sari composers had won human awards. A new generation of artists, both human and the Sari, was creating works that neither species could have imagined alone. It was not just coexistence. It was something deeper, something that was changing both species for the better. Chun looked up as her assistant entered. The Concord Observer is here for his monthly inspection. Chun sighed. Every month, the Concord sent someone to document Earth's progress. They were still waiting for failure, still hoping to prove that humanity was not as strong as it appeared. Each month, they left disappointed. Send him in. The observer was a small, gray-skinned creature with too many eyes. He walked around Chen's office, examining everything with obvious disdain. Your integration metrics continue to improve, he said. The High Tribunal finds this surprising. Chun kept her voice calm. We find it quite natural. When you treat people with kindness, they tend to flourish. Kindness? The observer said, making a sound that might have been a laugh. A quaint concept, not very useful in the larger galaxy. Perhaps the larger galaxy could learn something new. The observer stopped and looked at her directly. All of his eyes focused on her face, and Chun felt a chill run down her spine. The Concord has noted your influence on certain lesser species, he said. Several have expressed interest in the Earth model of integration. This is not viewed favorably. We have not sought to influence anyone. We have simply done what we believed was right. That is precisely the problem, Ambassador. When primitives start believing they know what is right, the established order becomes unstable. The Concord values stability above all else. Chun stood and faced him directly. The Concord sent us 6 million people to destroy us, she said. We turned them into partners. If that threatens your stability, then perhaps your order was never as stable as you believed. The observer stared at her for a long moment. Then he turned and walked toward the door. The Concord is patient, Ambassador. We have existed for 10,000 years. We will still exist when Earth is dust. Remember that. After he left, Chun sat heavily in her chair. The threat was clear. The Concord was not pleased with humanity's success, and the Concord was very, very powerful. But Chun was not afraid. Not anymore. She had seen what humanity could do when it chose compassion over cruelty. She had seen the power of kindness. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The attack came without warning. It was a sunny afternoon in Munich. The Sari Cultural Festival was in full swing, with thousands of humans and the Sari celebrating together in the city's main square. There was music and dancing, food and laughter. Children ran between the stalls, their faces painted with both human and the Sari designs. Marcus was there with Ishilare, enjoying the festivities. He had just bought her a strange fruit that was supposed to taste like something from her homeworld when he heard the first explosion. The world went white. Then it went silent. Then the screaming began. Marcus found himself on the ground, covered in dust and debris. His ears were ringing. He could not remember falling. He tried to stand, but his legs would not cooperate. HFY, he shouted. His voice sounded far away, muffled by the ringing. HFY. He crawled through the wreckage, searching. Bodies lay everywhere, human and the Sari alike. Some were moving, some were not. The air smelled of smoke and blood. He found her near the stage. Her body was curled protectively around the Sari child. Her glow was faint, flickering like a dying candle. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no." He gathered her in his arms. Her eyes opened slowly, and she looked up at him. "The child," she said weakly. "Is the child safe?" Marcus looked at the small Sari beside her. The child was crying, frightened, but unharmed. HFY had used her own body as a shield. "The child is safe," Marcus said, his voice breaking. "You saved her, but you need to hold on. Help is coming." HFY smiled. Her skin flickered with a gentle light. "You have been such a gift, Marcus. Such a good friend. Don't talk like that. You're going to be fine." "I am old," she said softly. "Older than I look. This was always going to end someday. I am just glad it ends here. On this beautiful world, with my family around me." "Please," Marcus begged, tears streaming down his face. "Please don't leave me." HFY reached up and touched his cheek. Her fingers were cold. "I will never leave you. I am part of you now. All the love I gave you, it lives inside you. Pass it on. That is how we survive." Her light faded. Her eyes closed, and she was gone. Marcus held her body and wept. Around him, the city burned. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed. But all he could see was the gentle soul who had saved him, who had loved him, who had given everything to protect a child she barely knew. The attack killed 40 Sari and 12 humans. A group calling themselves Humanity First claimed responsibility. They said the Sari were a threat, that they were stealing human jobs and corrupting human culture. They said the attack was just the beginning. They were wrong. In the days that followed, something remarkable happened. Instead of turning against the Sari, humanity turned toward them. Vigils were held in every major city. Millions marched in solidarity. Donations poured in to help the victims and their families. World leaders gave speeches condemning the attack. Ordinary people opened their homes to frighten the Sari neighbors. Human children held hands with the Sari children and promised to protect them. The attackers had wanted to drive the two species apart. Instead, they had driven them closer together. At HFY's memorial service, Marcus stood before thousands of mourners, human and the Sari alike. He spoke about her kindness, her wisdom, her gentle healing hands. He spoke about what she had taught him. That compassion is not weakness. That love is stronger than hate. That two species from different stars can become family. "They wanted us to be afraid," he said, his voice steady despite his grief. "They wanted us to turn on each other. But that is not who we are. That is not what HFY taught us. She taught us that we are stronger together. She taught us that kindness is the most powerful force in the universe. And as long as we remember that, as long as we live by that truth, she will never truly be gone." The crowd responded with light. The Sari patterns spread through the assembly like a wave, and the humans among them raised candles and phones, adding their own glow to the darkness. Two species stood together, refusing to give in to fear. It was exactly what HFY would have wanted. The Concord observers recorded everything. They transmitted the footage to the High Tribunal, expecting it to confirm their predictions, that the humans were divided, that the integration was failing, that the experiment would soon collapse. But when High Arbiter Voss reviewed the footage, he saw something else. He saw a species that had been attacked and had responded not with division, but with unity. He saw humans and the Sari standing together, refusing to be broken. He saw a threat. "Increase surveillance," he ordered. "Begin contingency planning. If Earth continues on this path, we may need to take more direct action." "What kind of action, High Arbiter?" Voss turned back to the screens. watching the memorial service unfold. The kind that ensures this disease of compassion does not spread beyond their little planet. On Earth, the sun was setting on another day. In the streets of Munich, humans and the Sari were cleaning up the rubble together. Above them, the stars were coming out, cold and distant. A storm was coming. But for now, there was peace and hope, and the unbreakable bond of two species who had chosen love over fear. It would have to be enough. 7 years after the refugees arrived, Ambassador Chun-Lin received a secret message. It came in the middle of the night, through channels so encrypted that even Earth's best computers could barely read it. The sender was anonymous, but the message was clear. We need your help. The Valorans are coming for us next. The Concord will not protect us. You are our only hope. Chun sat alone in her office, staring at the screen. The message was from the Keth, a small, peaceful species living on a planet at the edge of Valoran space. They were farmers and artists with no weapons and no military. They were exactly the kind of species the Valorans loved to conquer. And they were asking Earth for help. Chun thought about what this meant. Earth had no real military power compared to the great galactic empires. Their ships were small and slow. Their weapons were primitive. If they tried to fight the Valorans directly, they would be destroyed in hours. But there were other ways to help. She sent a reply, "We cannot protect you from invasion. But if you can reach Earth, we will give you sanctuary. Spread the word to others who need help. Our doors are open." Within a week, 3 more species sent similar messages. Then 5 more. Then 12. The galaxy was watching Earth, and the galaxy was taking notes. High Arbiter Voss summoned an emergency session of the High Tribunal. The chamber was vast and cold, designed to intimidate lesser beings. Hundreds of representatives from the galaxy's most powerful species sat in tiered rows, looking down at a central platform where Voss stood before a series of display screens. "The human problem has grown beyond acceptable limits," Voss announced. His voice echoed through the chamber. "What began as a simple disposal of unwanted refugees has become a threat to galactic stability." He activated the screens, showing images and data. In the past 7 years, Earth has successfully integrated over 6 million Thesari refugees. This alone was unexpected. But now they are expanding their influence. 12 lesser species have secretly requested asylum on Earth. 18 more are considering it. If this trend continues, humanity will become a rallying point for every weak and useless species in the galaxy. A Valoran commander stood. He was huge and muscular, with red skin and a face built for war. "Let me take my fleet to Earth. I will end this problem in a single day." "That would be unwise," said a representative from the Trade Coalition. "Earth has significant economic ties with over 40 Concord members. An attack would disrupt trade severely." "Then we strangle them slowly," suggested a voice from the shadows. "Economic sanctions, diplomatic isolation, cut off their access to galactic resources." Voss raised a hand for silence. "All options are being considered. But first, we must understand what makes the humans so appealing to these lesser species. Our analysis suggests it is something called compassion, a primitive emotional response that prioritizes the welfare of others over rational self-interest." The Valoran commander laughed. "Compassion? That is their weapon. We crush compassion beneath our boots every day. Perhaps that is why they fear you," Voss said calmly, "and why they turn to the humans instead." The chamber fell silent. For the first time, the great powers of the galaxy considered a dangerous possibility, that their strength might also be their weakness, that their cruelty might be driving others away. "We will continue monitoring," Voss said at last. "But I recommend we prepare for more direct action. If Earth cannot be controlled through indirect means, more forceful measures may be required." The tribunal voted. The motion passed unanimously. Somewhere across the vast darkness of space, humanity had no idea what was coming. The first asylum seekers arrived on a Tuesday. They were Keth, small, furry creatures with large eyes and gentle hearts. Their ship was old and barely functional. It had taken them 3 months to cross the galaxy, hiding from Valoran patrols and Concord inspectors. There were only 200 of them, the first of many. Ambassador Chun met them personally at the landing site. She brought translators, doctors, and supplies. She brought something else too. A promise. "You are safe here," she told their leader, an elderly female named Thessican. "You have nothing to fear anymore." Thessican looked at her with huge, wet eyes. "You do not know what you risk by helping us. The Concord will not forgive this." "The Concord did not forgive us for surviving," Chun replied. "They did not forgive us for succeeding. They will not forgive us no matter what we do. So we might as well do what is right." The Keth were settled in a community in New Zealand. Within months, they had become valuable members of their new home. Their skills in agriculture and animal husbandry helped local farmers increase their yields. Their gentle nature made them beloved by human children. Their gratitude was boundless, and they were not alone for long. More ships came. The Venthia, engineers whose planet had been stripped of resources by the Concord. The Salori, aquatic beings whose oceans had been poisoned by Valoran weapons testing. The Marn, tiny flying creatures who had served as slaves to a dozen empires. Each group was different. Each had their own culture, their own needs, their own challenges. Ambassador Chenny Lin stood at the tall window of her office in Geneva. The morning sun made the lake shine like gold. Birds sang in the trees outside. It was a peaceful day. She did not know it would be her last peaceful day for many years. Her assistant knocked on the door. His face was pale, his hands shaking. "Ambassador, there is a message from the Galactic Concord. Priority 1. Chun felt her stomach tighten. In the 3 years since humanity had made first contact with alien life, she had learned to fear Priority 1 messages. They never brought good news. She sat at her desk and opened the secure channel. The face that appeared on her screen was not human. It belonged to a tall, gray-skinned species with 4 eyes and a mouth full of sharp teeth. This particular being was High Arbiter Voss, one of the most powerful figures in the galaxy. "Ambassador Chun," Voss said, his voice cold and flat. "The High Tribunal of the Galactic Concord has reached a decision regarding the Thesari refugee crisis." Chun leaned forward. She had heard about the Thesari. 3 months ago, the Valoran Empire had invaded their homeworld. The Valorans were a warrior species that believed strength was the only thing that mattered. The Thesari were the opposite, a gentle, peaceful people with no army and no weapons. The invasion had taken only 6 days. Millions had died. The survivors had fled into space with nothing but the clothes on their backs. "The Concord has decided on a resettlement plan," Voss continued. 6 million Thesari refugees will be transported to Earth. They will arrive in 72 hours. Chun could not speak for a moment. She thought she had heard wrong. "I'm sorry," she said slowly. "Did you say 6 million to Earth?" "That is correct. But we cannot, High Arbiter. Earth has never hosted alien refugees before. We don't have the facilities. We don't know what they eat, how they breathe, what temperatures they need. 72 hours is not enough time to prepare for 6 million people." Voss's 4 eyes blinked slowly. "The Concord understands this will be difficult." "Difficult?" Chun stood up, her voice rising. "This is impossible. We need time. We need resources. We need help from the Concord. The Concord will not provide assistance. This is a resettlement, not a joint operation. The Thesari are now Earth's responsibility." Chun forced herself to stay calm. "May I ask why Earth was chosen for this honor?" Something that might have been a smile crossed Voss's face. "Earth is a growing world. The tribunal believes you have room for expansion. And of course, there is the matter of your recent behavior in the trade negotiations." Now Chun understood. Last month, she had publicly challenged the Concord's unfair trade rules, calling them exploitative and demanding change. The lesser species had watched in silence, but she had seen hope in their eyes. The Concord did not like hope. "The Thesari have no value to the Concord," Voss continued. "They have no military strength, no rare resources, no useful technology. They are, frankly, a burden. We are giving you the opportunity to prove that Earth is as compassionate as you claim." "And if we refuse?" You will not refuse. The ships are already on their way. If you fire upon them, it will be considered an act of war. If you turn them away, the Thesari will die in space, and that blood will be on human hands. The transmission ended. Chun stared at the blank screen for a long moment. Then she picked up her phone and made a call that would change human history. 12 hours later, the United Nations Security Council met in emergency session. The room was filled with the most powerful leaders on Earth: presidents, prime ministers, generals, scientists. Fear and anger hung in the air. Secretary General Amar Okonkwo stood at the podium, calm but resolute. In 60 hours, transport ships carrying 6 million Thesari refugees will enter Earth's atmosphere. They will need food, water, shelter, and medical care. We do not fully understand their biology, and the Galactic Concord has made it clear they will not help us. This is an act of war, the Russian representative said, slamming his fist on the table. They are using refugees as weapons, added another. Then we should send them back, the American representative said. Let them die in space. That is not our problem. A murmur of agreement spread through the room. Chen, sitting in the corner, felt sick. Okonkwo raised her hand for silence. I understand the anger. I share it. The Concord has treated us with contempt since the day we met them. They expect us to fail. They expect us to turn away 6 million innocent people and prove that we are as cruel as they are. She paused. But we are not them. That is the point. We are not them. The debate lasted for hours. Some nations refused. Others demanded impossible guarantees. But slowly, painfully, a plan began to take shape. By sunrise, the Global Thesari Integration Authority had been created. It was underfunded, understaffed, and facing an impossible deadline, but it existed. That was a start. Commander Sarah Torres had been a pilot for 15 years. She had flown combat missions, rescue operations, and diplomatic escorts, but she had never seen anything like the ships now appearing in Earth's sky. There were hundreds of them, massive gray cylinders with no windows, no beauty. They looked like coffins floating through space as they descended, blocking out the sun over half of Europe. Torres flew her fighter jet alongside the lead transport. Her orders were simple. Observe and report. Do not engage. Do not interfere. Just watch. The hull of the transport was scarred and dented, covered in something like rust. These were not passenger ships. They were cargo haulers. The Concord had packed 6 million living beings into cargo vessels. Commander Torres, came the voice over her radio. The first transport is requesting landing coordinates. Escort them to the primary reception zone in southern France. Understood. She guided the massive ship down. Below, a temporary city had risen in just 60 hours. Tents stretching for miles, supplies flown in from across the world, thousands of volunteers waiting. It would not be enough. Everyone knew that. The transport landed with a thunderous roar. Dust filled the air. The doors opened. First, nothing happened. Then they came. The Thesari stepped into the sunlight. Pale blue skin glowing softly, eyes dark and deep, patterns of light shifting across their scalps. They were beautiful, and they were terrified. A human doctor stepped forward, speaking gently. Welcome to Earth. We are here to help you. A Thesari mother, holding a weak child, hesitated, then reached out and took her hand. Behind her, thousands more followed. The largest refugee crisis in human history had begun. High Arbiter Voss watched from his distant station. Interesting, he murmured. They are actually trying. It will not last, his assistant replied. Their resources will collapse within 6 months. Then both humans and the Thesari will die. Perhaps, Voss said. But humans are unpredictable. On Earth, in a crowded shelter, an elderly Thesari named Ishil Ra watched humans move around her. Working, helping, smiling. In the Concord, no one had ever smiled at her people. A young man approached with a bowl of food. Hello, I'm Marcus. Are you hungry? She did not understand his words, but she understood his kindness. She took the bowl. The food was strange, not suited to her biology, but it was warm. She ate, Marcus watched nervously. Is it okay? We're trying to learn. Ishel let her skin glow brighter, a sign of gratitude. Marcus smiled. I'll bring more. We'll figure this out. I promise. Around them, chaos continued. Sickness, confusion, fear. But beneath it all, something else began to grow. Hope. It was fragile. It might not survive. But it was there. The Valoran commander requested guidance. Should he proceed? Voss hesitated. For the first time in his long career, he felt uncertain. The calculations that had always guided the Concord, power, efficiency, rational self-interest, those calculations said to destroy Earth immediately. But something else was happening. Something he did not understand. Tell the commander to proceed, he said finally. But also tell him to be prepared for complications. The Valoran fleet arrived at the edge of the solar system on the 28th day. They were magnificent in their terrible way. Massive red ships bristling with weapons designed for conquest and destruction. Each battlecruiser could reduce a city to ash in seconds. Together, they could burn Earth to bare rock. Commander Croth stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the small blue planet in the distance. Such a tiny thing, he said to his officers. Such a small cause for such a large problem. Shall we begin the attack, Commander? Not yet. First, we broadcast. Let them see what is coming. Let them know fear. His face appeared on every screen on Earth. His voice thundered from every speaker. People of Earth, I am Commander Croth of the Valoran Empire. You have defied the natural order. You have sheltered the weak and given hope to the hopeless. For these crimes you will be destroyed. You have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally. Your leaders will be executed. Your population will be enslaved. Your planet will become a mining colony for the Empire. If you do not surrender, we will simply kill everyone. Choose quickly. The broadcast ended. Across Earth, billions of people stared at their screens in horror. In shelters and homes, parents held their children. In churches and temples, people prayed. In military bases, soldiers prepared for a battle they knew they could not win. But in the Sari communities, something else was happening. The elders were gathering. The leaders of every refugee species were coming together. And at the center of them stood a figure no one had expected, Matriarch Ishel. Not the Ishel who had died in Munich. Her daughter, named in her honor, raised on her stories and trained in her wisdom. The young matriarch was only 40 years old, barely an adult by the Sari standards, but she had grown up on Earth. She had seen what was possible when species chose love over fear, and she was not willing to let it end. I will speak to them, she told the gathered leaders. I will speak to everyone. The Valorans will not listen, a Keth elder said. They only understand force. I am not speaking to the Valorans, the young matriarch replied. I am speaking to their crews, to their soldiers, to every being on those ships who has ever dreamed of something better. She walked to a communication console. Her skin glowed brighter than anyone had ever seen. Brilliant patterns of light that spoke of love and hope and defiance. Broadcast this on all frequencies, she said. Let everyone hear. The message went out across space. It reached the Valoran fleet. It reached the Concord stations. It reached every ship and every world that had the technology to receive it. On the bridge of his flagship, Commander Croth watched as a young Thesari female appeared on his screens. My name is Ishel, she said. 10 years ago, your Concord threw my people away like garbage. They dumped us on a planet of primitives and expected us to die. They expected the humans to fail. They expected cruelty to win, as it always has. But something different happened. The humans welcomed us. They did not have enough food, so they shared what they had. They did not understand our language, so they learned. They did not know how to help us, so they taught themselves. We were strangers from another star, and they made us family. Her skin pulsed with patterns of light, patterns that even non-empaths could somehow understand. Patterns that spoke of warmth, connection, and hope. My mother died here on Earth. She died protecting a child, a human child she had never met. She gave her life because she had learned from humans that all life is precious, that love knows no species, that compassion is the truest strength. Today, you come to destroy us. You think your weapons make you powerful. You think your empire makes you strong. But I have seen true power, and it does not come from the barrel of a gun. True power is a doctor who works through the night to save a life. True power is a farmer who shares his harvest with strangers. True power is a child who holds the hand of someone who looks different and says, "Do not be afraid. I am your friend." She paused, and her light grew even brighter. I know there are people on your ships who understand this. I know there are soldiers who are tired of killing. I know there are officers who dream of peace. I am speaking to you now. You do not have to do this. You can choose differently. You can be the generation that changes everything. Look at Earth. Look at what we have built, humans and the Sari and Keth and Salori and 100 other species living together in peace. It is possible. It is real. And you can be part of it. Please, put down your weapons. Choose hope. The broadcast ended. Silence fell across the fleet. Commander Croth stared at the screen for a long moment. Then he laughed. A pretty speech. But speeches do not stop plasma cannons. All ships prepare to. Commander, an officer's voice interrupted him. We have a problem. What problem? The crew. They are not responding to orders. Some are refusing to man their stations. Others are actively sabotaging weapon systems. We are receiving reports of the same thing across the fleet. Crotha's red face went pale. That is impossible. My soldiers are loyal. They were loyal, Commander. But they just heard something they have never heard before. Someone told them they do not have to kill. Someone told them there is another way. And some of them believe it. Croth turned back to the viewscreen. Earth hung in the darkness. Small, blue, utterly defenseless. He could still destroy it. He still had enough loyal crew to fire the main weapons. But what then? What would he return to? A fleet in mutiny? An empire where soldiers questioned orders? A galaxy where the Valorans were known as the ones who destroyed hope? For the first time in his warrior's life, Commander Croth was afraid. Not of death, not of failure. He was afraid of being on the wrong side of history. Commander, your orders? Croth closed his 4 eyes. He thought of his children growing up in a galaxy of endless war. He thought of his soldiers dying for causes they did not understand. He thought of the Sari girl's words. You can be the generation that changes everything. Pull back, he said quietly. Commander, I said, pull back. All ships, we are returning to Valoran space. The officer stared at him in shock. But the tribunal, they ordered us to destroy Earth. Let them destroy it themselves. Croth turned away from the viewscreen. I am done killing for old men who will not hold the weapons themselves. We are done. The Valoran fleet withdrew. Across Earth, people watched their screens in disbelief as the red ships turned and moved away. There was no celebration at first, only shock. They had been certain they were about to die, and now somehow they were not. Then the cheering began. It started in small pockets. Groups of friends, families huddled in shelters, strangers on the streets. It grew and spread, becoming a wave of joy that swept across the planet. Humans and the Sari and Keth and Salori danced together in the streets. Children laughed. Elders wept. They had won. Not with weapons, not with force, but with love. The ripples spread far beyond Earth. When news of the Valoran retreat reached the Concord, chaos erupted. Crews on dozens of stations refused to work. Politicians demanded answers. The High Tribunal was flooded with protests. Within a month, High Arbiter Voss had been removed from power. Within a year, the High Tribunal itself was dissolved. A new body took its place, the Galactic Assembly, with representatives from every species, great and small. Earth was invited to be a founding member. Ambassador Chun, now old and gray, made the journey to the Concord's capital station one last time. But this time, she was not summoned as a criminal. She was welcomed as a hero. The ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy. Trillions watched as humanity took its place among the stars. Not as conquerors, but as teachers. Not as the strongest, but as the most compassionate. Chen's speech was short. 10 years ago, we were given 6 million refugees as a punishment. We were expected to fail. We were expected to prove that compassion was a weakness, that kindness was foolish, that only power mattered. We proved something else instead. Today, we join this assembly not because we are powerful, but because we believed in something. We believe that every life has value. We believe that strangers can become family. We believe that the future can be better than the past. And we were right. The galaxy is changing. Old empires are falling. New ways of living are rising. It will not be easy. There will be struggles ahead, and setbacks, and those who wish to return to the old ways of cruelty and force. But we have seen what is possible. We have lived it, and we will never go back. She raised her hand, and beside her, the young matriarch HFY raised hers. This is what Earth offers the galaxy. Not weapons, not armies, not domination. Just this. If you need help, we will help you. If you need a home, we will welcome you. If you need hope, we will share ours. That is our gift. That is our strength. That is who we are. Years later, Ambassador Chun, now retired, living quietly with her grandchildren, walked through a memorial garden on the Sari Prime. The planet had been rebuilt. Where ashes had once covered the ground, flowers now bloomed. Where ruins had stood, cities rose again. It had taken decades of work, countless resources, and the effort of a dozen species working together, but it was real. The Sari Prime was alive again. Chun walked slowly along the paths, admiring the glowing plants and crystalline sculptures. Beside her walked Marcus, old now, gray-haired, still healing, but mostly healed. And beside him walked HFY's grandchildren, born on Earth, but visiting their ancestral homeworld for the first time. At the center of the garden stood a monument. It was simple, a pillar of white stone with words carved in both human script and the Sari light patterns. Chun stopped before it and read the inscription one more time. They meant to bury us. They did not know we were seeds. She smiled, watching the children run among the flowers, human and the Sari and Keth and others, indistinguishable in their joy. The galaxy had changed. Not all at once, not without struggle, but genuinely and permanently changed. Species that had been enemies now worked together. Worlds that had been isolated now reached out to each other. The old ways of cruelty and conquest were fading, replaced by something new, something better. It had started here with a cruel gift of 6 million refugees. It had grown through 10 years of struggle, sacrifice, and love. And now it was spreading across the stars, changing everything it touched. Chun took Marcus's hand and squeezed it gently. "Do you think she can see this?" he asked quietly. The first HFY. "Do you think she knows what happened?" Chun looked up at the sky, where Earth's star glittered among millions of others. "I think she always knew," Chun said. "She knew that compassion was stronger than cruelty. She knew that love was more powerful than hate. She knew that if we kept trying, kept believing, kept choosing the right path, eventually we would get here." She was right. The children's laughter rang through the garden. The flowers glowed.